What's up, guys? White Sox Daily back again. Aaron Feely here with you for the first day of winter meetings here in Major League Baseball. Couple of big stories breaking out of there pertaining to the Chicago White Sox, specifically, very intriguing one that Sports Illustrated just posted about. Obviously we keep hearing the Luis Robert trade rumors. Those just seem to never go away at any point. As long as the White Sox continue to be a bad baseball team, the White Sox best player will continue to be the focal point of trade rumors until the end of time. Sort of our personal, Mike Trout situation down there with the Angels. But a completely different White Sox player, the big headline grabber today, as the Boston Red Sox, in an ironic twist, reached out to Chicago during today's winter meetings on the first day to inquire about catcher Kyle Teel. And obviously, the funniest part of all that is that they drafted Kyle Teel. He was already their prospect to begin with. They shipped him out of town to get Garrett Crochet from us last year, and now they're trying to have their cake and eat it too here. Obviously, initial response, the Chicago White Sox turned them down flat out. So whatever Boston was intrigued with giving us in exchange for Kyle Teel, Chris Getz initially not interested, wasn't enough. Probably going to take a great deal of a haul to sell Kyle Teel at this point. He figures to be a big part of the Chicago White Sox future core, big part of this rebuild going forward. And whatever Boston offered today, not nearly enough. When he was traded to us, he was ranked as Boston's number 4 overall prospect in their system and number 25 in all of Major League Baseball. And obviously had a really nice year for Chicago. In just the 73 games he played, he was batting .273, 35 RBIs. He was looking good. He was playing good defense. Kyle Teel, great approach at the plate, especially for a guy in his very first year in the major leagues. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere unless, something really ridiculous were offered. And, just funny that it's Boston of all teams, the team that wanted Garrett Crochet more than they wanted him, suddenly wants him back. Now, that would be quite a pairing. I don't know, maybe ask for Crochet back instead. Maybe make that your rebuttal just for the fun of it. Why not? Why not? Just go full Looney Tunes with the whole deal. Go rabbit duck season on him. But yeah, Kyle Teel, Boston Red Sox interested in bringing him back. The Chicago White Sox said no, but obviously if Boston's really interested, might not be the end of those discussions. But we're moving right on along now to some of the other interviews that took place with Chris Getz himself. We learned quite a bit about the state of the White Sox, about what's going on in the organization, and about some views toward free agency this coming offseason for Chicago in those interviews with Chris Getz and Will Venable. The first of which being Chris Getz stating outright that one of the biggest priorities this offseason is to add quality outfield depth, particularly on the corners, and particularly, as he mentions, a good solid bat from one of those corners. He kind of talks about it here when he talks about, we brought in Everson. They're talking about Everson Pereira with the trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. We've got Brandon Montgomery in the wings. We've got Luis Robert manning center field. And we've got left fielder Andrew Benintendi. We've got Brooks Baldwin. We've got a lot of things we like. That's what Chris Getz had to say earlier on today. The White Sox definitely see a possibility in Brandon Montgomery being a fairly major part of the White Sox future. How big of a deal he's going to be in 2026 still remains to be seen. A guy who is doing very well in Double-A right now, but still is in just Double-A. So, talking about how one of the big priorities coming up here is going to be adding yet another big bat to the corner outfield. Probably someone to rotate in there, especially with Mike Tauchman having departed this offseason. Going to definitely be something to keep an eye on here for Chicago. And Chris Getz says as much. A lot of young stars coming up, but never hurts to add someone, especially if they can get someone of upper quality. We heard obviously today the Pittsburgh Pirates were interested in Kyle Schwarber. That was fairly major news. Not sure the White Sox are going to go quite that route of finally breaking through and being big spenders this offseason. I think somehow, some way, we're going to lose that race with the Pittsburgh Pirates to see which of us finally breaks out the checkbook for the first time ever. Embarrassing stuff, ladies and gentlemen. But moving right on along, more news, especially with the interviews there with Chris Getz. The other big priority coming up this offseason, they've talked about it a little bit before, about the bullpen and what they want out of their bullpen this coming season, what they wanted to target. Finally got a little bit more insight into what specifically Chris Getz is looking for. We had heard rumors about, is it going to be guys that can pitch a lot of innings, can just eat up some outs with a really young core of starting rotation pitchers for the White Sox this coming season? Can you get a bullpen out there that can really help those guys out? And if they can't go as long as maybe some of the veterans, can you bring in a veteran bullpen guy that can give you 2, 3, 4 innings to kind of mitigate that a little bit? Getz saying today that the primary focus on assisting the bullpen this offseason is going to find guys that can handle high leverage scenarios. He said guys that have been traditional closers will be prioritized. They're not looking for a closer. He was very clear about that. We're not looking for a closer for the Chicago White Sox, but a guy that has experience closing that we can use. He said not necessarily an 8th inning guy, not a exclusively 9th inning guy, just someone that we can trust in high leverage situations. So just any scenario in which, maybe you got to pull the starter with an out or two and the bases are loaded. Maybe it's the 7th inning in a tie game and you got runners on 1st and 3rd. Just anything like that you can trust a veteran pitcher to come into the game and get you out of it. That's kind of what he's looking for here. They're going to prioritize guys with a history of high leverage situations. They are specifically targeting guys with experience being 8th inning guys and being closers. So that appears to be the path that the Chicago White Sox are looking to go down in that bullpen scenario, and who they're looking for to add to the bullpen for 2026. And finally, the last interview that took place there was with Will Venable, the White Sox manager, who received some votes recently for American League Manager of the Year for his work last year with the 19-win upgrade in the Chicago White Sox final record from the previous year, where they were obviously historically bad. The Chicago White Sox, a little bit better, obviously still not great, still power ranked at 29 out of 30, still lost over 100 games, but there was stark improvement, and there was significant improvement after the All-Star break. That's where we really started to see, especially with the young guys. Montgomery came up, he was great. Chase Mydroth had his moments throughout the year. Shane Smith was spectacular pretty much all year, much better than expected for the Chicago White Sox. We got really solid play out of the two catchers, as Edgar Quero and Kyle Teel played above expectations. There's big expectations this coming season of some guys like a Noah Schultz, like maybe a Braden Montgomery, guys that might come up, step up, and step into this year's version of that role. And Will Venable talked about that and how different this offseason feels already compared to his first year when he was a first-year manager of a professional baseball team. Just discussing what it was like to be here in the building so early, what it was like to get out ahead as far as personnel decisions, and how much better he's feeling about this upcoming season compared to the nerves that he felt last year as that first-time manager. Said that he felt really great about bringing in a guy like Derek Showman, bringing in guys like Zach Bovee as the new pitching coach, and being a part of that process so early on, being here for the winter meetings with his staff already in place, being able to have the communication in regards to which free agents he wants the general manager to target, which ones fit his vision for what he wants the Chicago White Sox to be, and just generally how much different he feels in year two compared to year one. And that was an interesting read. You can go to the Chicago Tribune and read his full comments there. But yeah, that'll do it for today's episode. Give us a like, give us a follow down below. Let us know what you think the biggest moves of this offseason should be for the Chicago White Sox. What would you need in return as well if the White Sox were to ship off Kyle Teel, especially to Boston, where obviously we got him from in the first place? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.